Welcome to Wizards of the Tower Roleplay. In this episode, I don't kill players. Players kill players. And why characters get killed.
Part 2 on Wizards of the Tower.
Welcome everyone to Wizards of the Tower Roleplay. I'm Delaney.
And I'm Tom.
And in this channel we talk everything role-playing, tabletop, and possibly even a little bit of computer role-playing, and maybe even some other kind of tabletop games.
Sure.
So, in this episode, I don't kill players. Players kill players. Why characters get killed.
Or do they? So,
Part 2.
Part 2. I decided that I think we should talk more a little about this because we've had some notable deaths in our game groups. And the very first time I played, which was 3.5, D&D 3.5, I think it probably had to be either the first episode or the second episode we played, we had a death in our group.
Yeah.
And he was so mad, that player was so mad, he never came back. So, that was in Redstone Keep.
Yeah, Redstone Keep takes place in my campaign world of a Dane.
A
Homebrew game that I've been running since the 80s or so. And it's just gotten more developed as time went.
Yeah.
And I had wrote out a module called Redstone Keep, which started off in a little village called Greenfields.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of places have Greenfields.
Sure.
And of course they had a place inside of Greenfields called the Green Griffin Inn.
Green Griffin Inn.
Which is where everything started.
Mm-hmm.
And what happened, what the synopsis of what was going on was a young girl had gone missing. A merchant's wagon had been found with the wagon overturned and the merchant and his horse gone, but blood. And there was somebody else that went missing. So the party went out to investigate, and one of the places that they were told to possibly look was this old abandoned keep that was, I think it was about a day and a half journey from the village.
Yeah. So, our party, first level, not particularly experienced, kind of a mixture of, I think I played a ranger in that one. I still have my ranger figure. But we had a couple rogues probably, a fighter or two, maybe a wizard, and we had a barbarian.
You were actually playing Nederbeck, the cleric.
Oh, okay.
Nederbeck started off as a paladin, but then later on...
Oh, that's right, he switched from being a paladin to a cleric.
Right.
We had a barbarian dwarf. So, we've already had some problems in this keep. This place is abandoned, but there's a lot of evil things happening here.
There were gnolls running around the upper levels and other things down below.
Yeah. So, one of our characters got attacked by a musk vine. And a yellow musk creeper. And what happens there is essentially it starts draining your int. And we were just rolling the countdown when the guy would eventually become a drooler because he was a zombie. He was getting less and less intelligent as he failed his saves. And I think somehow he was rescued from that yellow musk creeper.
That close.
Yeah, very close. So that should give you a clue that the place is pretty dangerous. Really dangerous. So we have a dwarven barbarian, and we encounter some rat men and some gnolls. And gnolls are like tall dog creatures, hyenas, with armed with swords, and they can become tough. We're down in the dungeons of this keep. It's like an old abandoned fortress with broken walls and towers and buildings. We're down in the basement. There's a dark room. There's some movement in the room. He does what he said. Oh, I'm just going to play my character. I'm going to be a barbarian. I'm going to charge in. He charges in. He gets ambushed.
Yeah, charges downstairs into a dark room.
Into a dark room without knowing what's in there, without even a lantern.
Now, as a dwarf, he could see in the dark, but he couldn't see everything that was in the.
He can't see around the doors. They're hiding behind the doors. He runs into the room. He gets jumped by 3 or 4 rat men and gnolls.
No, it was 4 gnolls.
4 gnolls.
Yeah, two that were waiting deeper in. He saw in two that were waiting off to the sides. As soon as he got past, they came in behind him.
All right. So then he gets jumped. Now all you need to do is blow a few saves, blow a few rolls, and that's what happened to him. And he got chopped to pieces. Now here's the problem.
Nibble.
Yeah.
Kibble bits.
Yeah. Into kibble bits. And now here's the problem: is his body was dragged off. And of course, later on, you find out that they drag people off and perform experiments on their bodies and stuff. But his body got dragged off by his antagonists, and we couldn't get to him in time.
Right.
So essentially, he was gone. We couldn't resurrect him. We couldn't find his body. We couldn't resurrect him. We couldn't do anything. We're first and second level characters. What can we do? We don't have 30,000 gold of diamond dust or whatever to resurrect somebody. He's gone. Now, he did not take that well. That player did not take that well at all. He got pretty mad, and he never showed up again.
And in both those instances, why did they die?
Well, they split the party.
The reason why the guy by the Yellow Musk Creeper went off by himself.
Yeah, he split the party. Well, as they say in some of those songs and in the gamers, don't you know you never split the party.
Right.
So that's one instance. We also had a player who liked to create these rogues, and he would name them Shadow.
Yeah.
Shadow. So in the town of Greenfields, there's the Green Griffin Inn, and the Green Griffin Inn is always one of those places where the adventure starts. Everybody's sitting around enjoying some ale, trying to get to know each other. The door bangs open, and a woman charges in. My husband, he's on the caravan. They were attacked by orcs. Everyone's dead, but they think he's still alive. I'll give you anything I've got. Gold, silver, whatever. Go get him. Go get him. Bring him back alive. And everyone looks at each other and like, I hate orcs, so I'm ready for adventure. So they get up and they form a group and they go off, and that's the start of a quest.
Right. The Green Griffin Inn was a spot of many adventure starts.
Exactly.
And a place that the players return to again and again and again up until, I think, about 5th level.
Yep. However, what eventually happened is that the poor old Green Griffin Inn in Greenfields was attacked by orcs and burned down. Now, during that fight, we had Shadow, a rogue, who decided to, once again, separate themselves from the party, go off by themselves and do either something foolish or something heroic or something where no one could watch his back. And what happened to him?
He got turned into orc food. He got sliced and diced and
chopped up,
killed. And
chopped
the player
up by
was
orcs.
quite bummed that Shadow had died.
Well, we couldn't get to him in time. We couldn't get and find his body in time.
We found his body, but you couldn't get to him.
We couldn't get him time, to rebuke death or anything like that. So he was so far away. The thing about rebuke death is you've got to get there within one round. And most clerics are, not the fastest. They're kind of armored. They move it at the most 30. Even if they ran at 60 feet, sometimes you can't get around walls or around buildings to get to a character who's got themselves way off by themselves, and then they get killed. What can you do about it? So that he's a victim of circumstance, right? And not playing his character properly and not taking heed of the threats in the scenario.
Well, I wouldn't say he wasn't playing his character correctly. He decided to be heroic and thought he could take on the world because before all that time he had, he'd been lucky.
Yeah, lucky.
He'd been lucky.
But your luck runs out, folks. Mm-hmm. Remember, this stuff is pretty fickle. It doesn't always roll the way you want it. I rolled a natural 10. So
10-sided.
It doesn't always roll the way you want.
Right.
So one of the ones that I just could not believe when it happened, one of the deaths took place, and this person who was playing the character was just there because her boyfriend was there and she wanted to keep an eye on him. So she really wasn't paying attention to what her character was doing. We were in the Pyramid of the Snake Men. And it was a complex thing that Delaney had created as part of her game. And we're in like a jungle setting, and you got these big step pyramids.
It was very Mayan in style, but it was inhabited by these snake men and reptiles. Not lizard men, but I think they were Yinti. I think what they were.
Yinti. And we're inside this huge step pyramid, and the place is loaded with traps. I mean to tell you, sand traps, water traps,
crushing traps.
We're barely making it through. We're blowing healing spells.
Fireball traps.
Yeah, we're blowing healing spells left and right. We're guzzling potions. We're trying to make it. One of our rogues gets blasted in some kind of a trap and ends up with 1 hit point left. Okay? And then foolishly does not heal herself.
Or ask for healing.
Or even ask for healing. Or even chug a potion. She's just not paying attention to the fact she has 1 hit point left. She gets to the front of the party. We're heading down this hallway. A trap goes off. Blam! Her character's blown to pieces. You know, killed outright. And we're all like, how many hit points do you have? I'm 21 below 0. Like, 21 below 0? Why didn't you heal the last time? I don't know. And I looked at her sheet and she had written 1 for her hit points on there. And like, she only had 1 hit point. She didn't heal up before she jumped in front of the...
She would have survived.
Yeah, had she healed, she would have survived. But she just jumped in front of the party again to be the rogue that, you know, looks for traps or looks for, all kind of pitfalls or whatever, and ends up getting blasted. Now, of course, she didn't really care because, like I said, she was there just to keep an eye on her boyfriend, you know, so that he wouldn't get in trouble playing an evil Dungeons and Dragons game. But, I mean, come on. I just couldn't believe it. I'm just like, oh, man, I can't believe it. This is just out of control. I can't believe he freaking died.
Now, mind you, every one of these characters that Tom is bringing up have been in my adventures.
Yeah. So, now, personally, I had a character. His name was Eric Domino, and he was a bard. That's like, you know, Derek and the Dominoes, like...
it was a play on words.
Yeah, it was a play on words, like Derek and the Dominoes, like Eric Clapton. And Eric and his brother Merrick. Now, Merrick came back after Eric died. But we were in a tomb, it turned out to be a rather deadly tomb, of a kind of an underground... it was kind of an underground...
Well, it was in the middle of a cemetery. And it was a mound.
Yeah, it was a grave mound. And we were down inside like a barrel. We were down inside, and we were looking at some sarcophagi. And out of the walls and stuff come these shades or something. And, you know, those things are deadly. Not only do they do drains, you know, level drains, but they also hit you with these attacks. Well, my character was backed up against a wall, and he couldn't get out. He couldn't get out of the way, and they surrounded him, and because he was essentially just a bard, and he couldn't heal himself at that time, he died. There was just no way around it. And we didn't have a cleric in that game, or something, or our cleric wasn't in the mound with us, or something like that, but he couldn't be resurrected. His death could not be rebuked, and he couldn't be be healed.
I don't think they turned the undead, and I think your normal lucky dice failed you that one time.
Yeah, I mean... You know, you'd blow a couple rolls, and pretty soon you're dead. So, that's my fault. I probably got separated from the party. I had unlucky dice. But here's another thing. Acrobatics checks. Acrobatics checks, folks. Always put points into acrobatics. Because if you're stuck, and you got to get out of a group of undead that are swarming you, roll a high acro check and tumble out of that scenario. You may take an attack of opportunity, but attack of opportunity is better than being swarmed by 4 undead shades who are going to just tear you to pieces if you don't get the hell out of there.
Well, in that instance, you know, with an acro check, if you got 3 monsters sitting there, they all 3 get their attack of opportunity unless they've made their attack of opportunity already, unless they have cleave or greater cleave.
Right.
Or you know, something like that. But if you can beat their attack roll with your acro check, then you get out.
A high dex with lots of acro. All right, so then there's another episode, and this is the same character.
Not the same character, same guy that lost Shadow.
Yeah, this is the same player.
He actually lost 2 characters in one campaign.
Yeah. This was the same player who created another character.
Different campaign world. A Dane, and then I have another world called Morwicca that I've gained out of.
Yeah. He decided he was going to grapple an owlbear. Not a good idea, because there were 2 enraged owlbears. And for some reason or another, he came charging off the wagon. You know, we'd been ambushed by these owlbears in this forest.
This player typically liked to play monks, and
Yeah.
I wasn't allowing monks in the adventure. So the next best thing was a brawler fighter. From
A brawler fighter, yeah.
One of the other Pathfinder books.
Yeah, they have some monkish sort of attributes to them. But he decided he was going to use his strength and dex to grapple these owlbears. Blew some rolls, and he was just ripped to pieces. Now, the thing is I had a cleric in
that. That was the second character in that adventure.
Yeah, the second character, he got killed. I had a cleric, but I could not get my cleric over there in time to rebuke death. I was on the other side of the wagon. I couldn't move, I think, more than 20 feet, and he was like 60-some feet away, and I couldn't get there in time. So then the guy kind of got a little upset about that, that character. But it was so foolish for him to do that. Characters, players who do such foolish things, you just don't know what to say to them. You're just like, what were you thinking that you wanted to grapple two enraged owlbears?
Well, it's kind of like you were talking the other day about the Mazes and Monsters.
Yeah.
Just kind of, we went back and watched that a little bit just to kind of refresh our minds, and sure enough, the DM was saying, there's a pit that has all this treasure and gems and stuff, and it could be a trap, and the guy says, I'm jumping down into it.
Yeah.
And killed him.
And he impales himself on a gem-encrusted spike.
It's like, what were you thinking?
What were you thinking?
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
And that same player, though, who tried to hug the owlbear, had lost another character earlier on in the adventure, which was a well.
Yeah.
There was this story.
I call it a haunted well.
Right, but the young men were becoming missing.
Mm-hmm.
And the synopsis behind it was there's a hag that was coming and creating an image of a beautiful young woman on this well, and the story was of a ghost in this well, of a young lady who had been missed, or she drowned herself because of a lover. And this hag was coming and had heard this rumor and was emulating it.
Yeah.
And luring people. While the party decided to go in the well, this one player, and it was a deep well, and made it to the side where the hag was coming through, but then decided to go back and tell the party. And by that time, he had already taken some damage.
Yeah.
But had no healing.
Yeah.
And he failed rolls going back and
drowned.
He drowned.
I mean, it's a flooded cave. It's an enormous cavern, and you have a swim check. It seems to me his swim check was pretty high, but he just couldn't make the rolls to keep up the distance.
Yeah.
He couldn't keep going for hundreds of feet underwater without breathing.
Which comes to the point of you need to have, I think it's a good con.
Yeah.
When it comes to preventing drowning, and his con wasn't the highest.
It wasn't.
He had a high swim, but he didn't have the highest con.
Yeah.
And instead of in the party taking the person that had the best con and the best swim in comparisons, he decided that he wanted to be the one that went down, and he drowned. So
the thing that kind of upset me about that one, not only did he go off on his own, I mean, he's kind of like a scout. Okay, that's what you'd expect. He didn't prepare any healing beforehand, which it's always something you should do. You should prepare some healing beforehand. Try to convince the people in your party to hand you some healing potions.
I like, my characters, when we adventure, you always give the fighters and those who can't heal themselves a potion. Yeah. So that way, if they're getting beat on, if they take a step back and, quaff the potion, at least gives them a moment to, or they fight defensively and take the potion, at least gives them a round or two possibly, or more, to stay in the fight until the cleric can get there to actually heal him.
Sure. That, or accept some boosts and buffs. I don't think we had an actual cleric in that, because my character in there was like a fighter, or he was a brawler, I think. He was a blacksmith.
Yeah.
And he didn't have like any sort of spells or anything.
At that point, Merrick was there.
Okay.
You had Merrick and Big Lovely. You were playing two characters.
That's right. But what I didn't like is my brawler had to go down inside the well and get him, and almost died himself, trying to find his body, bring him back up. And it's only because of his tremendous strength and dex that he was able to climb back up out of the well on a rope, carrying a body with him. Yeah. And I lucked out with a few good rolls, and we got his body up out of the water. Now, you had a stipulation that he could come back alive.
right? But he had a curse when he did it. And
Yeah.
his curse was the goddess of death haunted him, and he couldn't sleep, so he
Yeah.
was constantly fatigued and
Yeah.
wasn't sleeping at night, and he had a dream that she basically told him that if he would sacrifice an innocent,
Mm-hmm.
he could remove the curse. Now the
Yeah.
character was chaotic neutral.
This is a guy who had in an earlier campaign we played wanted to become a slaver and have slaves. So why in the world his chaotic neutral character in this one wouldn't go up and like slash a town guardsman,
An old
an old person's throat, or kill a town guardsman or something like that? Why he wouldn't do it just so he could keep his character going, I don't know. But I think at that time he was kind of getting a little miffed about the fact that his characters kept dying, and I think he was blaming Delaney for that.
Yeah. Well, and there was a long time ago, first edition, I actually had a guy that I gamed with, Chuck and Ronnie, and Chuck was quite the character. He was a great guy to play with, and there was another old abandoned keep,
Yeah.
and they had gone into the keep and they had been warned by this little gnome who was hiding that there was a lizard that lived in the keep. And they'd gone into the keep. They didn't find the lizard, or it was actually a wizard because the gnome had said it wrong. He was frightened. And they open a door and there stands a troll.
Oh.
And the troll just stands there looking at him. Well, what does Chuck the Paladin and Ronnie the Ranger do? They charge in, attacking the troll. And in first edition, a Paladin has Detect Evil.
Yeah.
And he ends up, both of them ended up dying in that case, because the troll ended up going rampage on him and killing him, and then the troll's like, why did you guys attack me? I'm standing here. And it ended up being a troll, somebody who'd been transformed into a troll who hadn't lost his
I didn't know that. He'd been transformed.
He'd been transformed into a troll by the lizard, the lizard wizard.
The lizard, okay.
That but hadn't lost his mind yet to the mind of a troll. He was still a person. And so that was some of the first character deaths that I ever had. The last one,
the most recent
one was, the party was once again a tomb.
Yeah.
And
a big tomb.
It was like a mound with a hinge.
Yeah.
And the party was moving along slowly with the ranger and the thief in the front, or the fighter actually, not a ranger. It was a fighter, but they're a range based. Moving along slowly, checking for traps and monsters.
Checking for traps every step.
They had a lantern.
Yeah.
And they found this tiled set in the floor, and they decided, well, we're not going to step on that. We'll move around it. And as soon as they moved around it, they saw in the distance of the lantern a skeleton shape of a large creature.
Yeah.
And this character decided, that was hanging out towards the middle or back of the party, decided
a witch character
decided,
very squishy.
Okay, I'm going to go investigate this 40 feet away from the rest of the party, and immediately got jumped by 3 undead, surrounded and jumped by 3 undead. And it was an unfortunate thing, but you get to the whole don't split the party, and there's a squishy. The room had not been totally investigated yet.
It had not. We've only had a bullseye lantern, and we could only see just a cone in front of us in an area. Not a good thing to do for the squishy character to run, squishy magic user to run away from the group, to run over and investigate something, over in the corner.
Especially as the party's been moving quietly, slowly and quietly investigating, taking their time, making sure there wasn't, because they had already been warned by an NPC that if they went there, it would possibly mean their deaths.
Well, we just fought an undead giant that was guarding the tomb. This gives you an idea that there's something in this tomb, that this tomb is dangerous, very dangerous. An undead frost giant. Okay, that should clue you in. This is going to be no cakewalk. Watch for traps. Watch for baddies. It's dark in there. Not all of us have dark vision. All we have is a bullseye lantern. Be careful what you're doing.
Yeah.
So what happened is they get swarmed by undead, and undead like to swarm you. They come all around you from different angles and they attack all at once. Now, here again, acro. Okay? acrobatics check. You may take some attacks, but at least if you make your acrobatics check, you can tumble out of that group and get halfway back towards your party. You know, even though even though you're very damaged, you can get back to your party so that they can help you. What this witch decided to do, instead of acting out, was pulling out their dagger and started to pick a fight with 3 undead shades or wraiths or something.
There was 2 wraiths and a dread wraith.
And a dread wraith. Okay, that's a heck of a stack against a lower level witch, okay, with a dagger. And, you know, the witch got a couple stabs in, but that didn't matter. You know, they bite, you know, they claw, bite, level drain, claw, bite, level drain, claw, bite, level drain. Pretty much, you know, after a couple of attacks, how far down was the witch?
Oh, the witch character, he had taken like 40 some points of damage. Well, because the level draining,
yeah,
their constitution
kept dropping.
Was less than, I think it was like 3.
Yeah.
And you have to remember that when you drop in con, your hit points are going to drop exponentially too.
Yeah.
Based upon that, and they ended up having being minus 49 hit points.
Yeah, you're not coming back from that.
Yeah, and you think, you know, we're not going on a diatribe about, you know, killing off characters. The whole part of this this episode is, why do characters die? And a lot of it is, 1, splitting the party.
Yes.
2,
failure to play your character correctly.
And 3, not knowing the system well enough, I guess.
Yeah, not
to
knowing.
say, and acroing out, because that's always an advantage. And
Yeah.
you may get hit, you may not get hit, because once again, you take your acrobatics plus your die roll versus their attack roll, and if they only have 1 attack of opportunity, you know, yeah, they get 3 attack of opportunities, but if you roll high enough,
Yeah, you
and
can
they
get out
roll
of there.
low enough, you
Yeah.
can get out of there.
Yeah. So the whole point of this is essentially, know your character. Know your character's strengths and weaknesses. Know that you are much safer, especially if you're a squishy character, that you are much safer in a group. Don't split the party. Don't go off by yourself trying to do some heroic thing or something like that. Pay attention to what's going on around you. Pay attention to the dangers, and always respect, you know, the scenario that you're in. Always respect, you know, the monsters that you're fighting, and stick with your group.
Well, especially when one of the NPCs says you go in there, it'll mean your death. And then
someone warns you about that.
When you walk in, the first thing
Yeah.
you face is an undead frost giant.
Yeah. And that should clue you in about how dangerous it is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, this episode of I Don't Kill Players, Players Kill Players, and Why Characters Get Killed on Part 2 on Wizards of the Tower Roleplay. And with that, may all your adventures be epic, and keep on role-playing.
Thanks, folks.